the grips of it. I mean, I don't know how to like in words, man. I just the stronghold, how powerful it is. Um, I feel like it's a curse. Um, it's like something that can just like grab a hold of you, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't get out of that grip, man. And uh, it sucks. It sucks. It really does.
Where are you from?
From Houston, Texas. I grew up in this neighborhood here in Magnolia.
And you've been here your whole life?
I moved to Dallas Fort Worth in 1995, and I stayed there till like 2016. But I would come back occasionally, like to visit my family. Sometimes I'd stay for 2 or 3 months, but for the most part, from 95 to 2016, I stayed in Dallas Fort Worth, with the exception for the years that I was in prison. I spent a lot of years in prison too. So,
And then, how about your family? Can you tell me a little bit about your family?
native Houstonians. My dad and my mother are from Houston, Texas. I have 4 siblings. I have one sibling that's in Dallas. That's what took me to Dallas, or that's the reason why I went to Dallas.
And then, how was your childhood?
Um, Golly, man, it's kind of rough, I guess. I mean, but I mean, yeah, it wasn't nice. I left home at 13, man. I was I don't know if you're familiar with the Houston area or not, but when I left home, my dad moved us out of this neighborhood. My grandmother stayed living here for years, and uncles and aunts. But we lived over there off of Evergreen and Lawndale, Woodridge and 45. I don't know if you know that area. Um, so when I left home at 13, I was living on the streets off of Broadway and 610, Broadway and 45. I would sleep on top of a flat roof tar washateria. It's actually still there today.
Mm.
Yeah, that washateria is still there. I find it kind of amusing. But I had a kind of a rough childhood. A lot of, my dad used to beat me a lot. A lot of physical violence, I guess. For I don't, for lack of a better term, I don't know.
So you dealt with a lot of abuse as a child?
Yeah, a lot of abuse, a lot of abuse, a lot of physical abuse, a lot of verbal abuse, which I tie into emotional and psychological abuse. I mean, I think it only makes sense. Uh, and basically, I was just terrified of my father, man. I was just scared of him. I mean, I got my ass beat for everything, for everything and for nothing. And my dad's view was everything that came out of my mouth was a lie. So even if I was telling the truth, man, there were times I got beat, and it was it's just crazy, man. And so I was scared of my father. I was terrified of him. And so I remember the day I ran home. I ran away from home. My stepmother drove me by my father's job, and she drove by there for whatever reason to talk to him or whatever. And she mentioned that the teacher said Israel was bad in school. And I remember my dad looking at me really hard and saying, "Your ass is mine when I get home, boy." And I was scared, man. I've been through that route so many times, and so I remember when we got home, my stepmother walked to the bedroom or the restroom or something, and I ran out the back door and I jumped the fence, and I decided that I wasn't gonna do that no more, and I started living on the streets. Like I was determined not to go back home.
Do you still have any contact?
Yeah. Fortunately, my counselor, I'm in ES, which I'm in the phase where you technically can't use the phone for the first 30 days. But, my counselor, for one reason or another, has allowed me to call my mom. That's the only person I really care to talk to. Thank God I don't have a female in my life. That probably would have definitely drove me out of here, but the only female that I have that I care about is my mom. And so he's allowed me to, I've communicated with my mother, and she almost pleads, no, she doesn't always, she pleads with me not to leave. I'm honest with her. I just tell her, I say, I need you to know how I feel, what I'm going through. And so she kind of talks me through it. She's been I call her my biggest cheerleader. She's my cheerleader, man. She's hoorahing me on it. And I find it just slightly strange. My mom's 74. I'm 50. I have not had a relationship with my family at all, man. I left home at 13 from basically, and I'm just giving you just like, I'm not giving you all the details, but I left home at 13, and like from like maybe 13 and a half or 14 to 18, I spent in TYC or on the streets, either or. I was in a boys' home in East Texas for a year, and then I did the other years in Texas Youth Commission, Giddings State School, Brownsville State School, and Gainesville State School. 6 months after I got out of Giddings State School in Giddings, Texas, I was on my way to TDC, the state penitentiary, because I had two burglary habitations and an auto theft, or unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. And so I had just turned 18. So from 1988 to 2008, which I was 38. In that 20-year span, I did 13 years in prison. And then the years that I wasn't in prison, for the most part, I was either squandering my life away in topless bars, doing cocaine, doing crack, because I hadn't been introduced to meth yet. Doing cocaine, smoking crack, and running the streets, and just being a whoremonger. And the reason why I share that is because I never really spent time with my family, never. And so my relationship with my brothers and sisters and my mother is what I like to describe as estranged. But the neat part is that I have two brothers and two sisters and a mother that, for reasons unknown to me, they really, really love me, man. They express it to me a lot, man. And they've never given up on me. The years that I spent homeless was because I had become overwhelming to them. There were many times I could have been, and there were other times that I was homeless in my life too, but this last time, it was, for the most part, 4.5-year stretch that I was homeless on the streets. There were brief intervals that I got off, but they were far and in between. But my family, they could not, they couldn't, I was overwhelming. They couldn't deal with me no more. I was erratic. I was uncontrollable. They were apprehensive around me. They were scared of me. I was subject to be talking to you like this and go into an absolute fit of rage in a split second. They didn't know what was going to set me off, and it was scary to them. And so they wouldn't allow me to live with them anymore. And then I never respect the rules, never. They would say, okay, you can come live here. You can parole to the house again, because I had to parole out of prison 5 times. Yeah, you can parole back to the house, but Israel, this is the way it's going to be. And I'd be, okay. And I would do the complete opposite, man. The complete opposite. Just, it's like slapping them in the face, man. It was totally disrespecting. And it was wrong, man. It was wrong. I wouldn't respect the rules, the curfews, the dinner table, anything. I just no respect. It was bad, man. It was just bad. It was bad. And it would hurt them, and they would tolerate that bullshit, man. And I just didn't realize how much I was I didn't realize how much I was really, looking back, I didn't realize how much I was disrespecting my family, how much I was hurting them. And I've hurt them so much. Recently, one of my brothers, who can't allow me to live with him because his wife refuses to allow me to be in that house, but he would go out to the streets and look for me, and he would say, one thing he said to me one day, and it just made me bust out in tears. He says, Israel, I got a mad love for you, man, like you don't even know. And it just cut me like like a two-edged sword, man. It just made me bust out in tears. I mean, I don't care. You're always going to be my brother, and I'm always going to be here for you. And but at some point, he would have to drop me off somewhere, and he'd have to go back home, and I was still on the streets. And I was seething mad, but I knew that I was out there because, unfortunately, that's where I chose to be. I was like, my first drug that I actually started doing on the streets was huffing paint. There was a thing back in the 80s called Texas Shoe Shine. We used to sniff Texas Shoe Shine and other chemicals too, silver, gold, crystal clear. There were other things we used to sniff too, Tolly. And then I got introduced to marijuana and then started drinking. That's what started it. Then I got introduced to harder drugs, cocaine, crack. Later on in life, I got introduced to cocaine and crack. I was shooting up cocaine, smoking crack, and then in Fort Worth in 2011, I got introduced to methamphetamines, and that became the worstest nightmare of my life, man. Little did I know what I was getting into, man. I had no clue. And methamphetamines infected me a lot because I was one of the persons that, and a lot of people do it, but not all of them. I was one of the persons that would like to stay up for days. I found that invigorating. I just found it just made me feel different, man. But I would stay up for 4 and 5 and 6 days at a time, and like I would go without eating for 3 and 4 days. Well, as a result of that, I suffered a lot of hallucinations because of sleep deprivation. Because I would ask doctors, you know, I would get put in psych wards so many times, and I would ask these questions like, why am I going crazy? Because I literally felt like I was going crazy. And he said that the sleep deprivation was causing me more harm than the methamphetamines was. This is what he said. I don't know. But they probably caused the equal amount of damage. I don't know.
So what did you do for money?
Man, interesting. I've been to prison 5 times. In between 1988 and 2005 was the last time I went to prison. I got out in January 2008. Most of my cases are theft cases, from burglary of habitation to auto theft to forgery of a financial instrument, basically business checks. And my cases are in one form or another theft related, but when I got on methamphetamines, I had already been out of prison since 2005. Got off parole in 2011, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. But anyway, I decided that I didn't want to go back to prison. And so I had to come up with some way to make money. And I did something I said I would never, ever do. And I started panhandling. And I found that so degrading, asking people for money. But it was funny the way I did it. I kind of, what I call myself, studied it. And most people use the term flying a sign where they hold. And I didn't do that. I didn't stand on street corners and I didn't fly signs. I would go up to people and talk to them and ask them for money. And I always had a spill. And I only worked in certain locations, which were mainly hospitals and courthouses. Strange as that may sound, courthouses. Tons of cops there, right? But I did really well in front of courthouses. And I did really well at hospitals. And I had a spill, and my spill was like a minute or less. People are coming and going. They're not trying to listen to no long story, right? So I had a spill, and it was always good. and I would generate, on average, I would generate $100 to $150 in 2 to 3 hours. So that's what I was doing for money for the most part, from 2011, no, from like 2015 to up to recently.
How much did you spend on meth?
It varies. You can buy a gram of meth for $40, $50, and that's more on the high end. I mean, people have actually sold it for more. You can get a gram of meth for $25. But I had other things that I would spend my money on also. So I would buy, let's say I would buy 2 grams, and let's say I spent $50. I would also spend money on pornography. I would spend money on going into adult video stores, and I spent a lot of money in there. So I'd spend money on cigarettes. Um, Very, very, very rarely would I spend money on something to eat. That was a crying shame. I would be hungry too. I wouldn't eat. I couldn't eat, and I didn't want to eat. And so I can remember times where I literally felt my stomach was touching my spinal cord, but I wouldn't eat. I couldn't eat. I just couldn't, and I didn't want to either. So most of my money went on the meth, cigarettes, pornography, magazines, and adult video stores, and women.
What do you think is one thing that people may not understand about addiction?
The grips of it. I mean, I don't know how to, like, in words, man. I just the stronghold, how powerful it is. Um, I feel like it's a curse. Um, it's like something that can just like grab a hold of you, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't get out of that grip, man. And uh, it sucks. It sucks. It really does. Not that, not that I am a suicidal person, but it's important for me to say that, man. That there's so many times where I just consider death, man. Like I'd rather die than to live like this. This sucks. I can remember walking up and down the streets in Fort Worth, because my addiction was really bad in Fort Worth and Dallas, but mainly in Fort Worth. It was bad, bad. This last snowstorm we had, I was outside. I remember being out in a tent in Fort Worth off of East Lancaster, which is a homeless district, and they had homeless shelters there. But I was one of the ones, and there were many of us out there, and more snow than what we got here, in tents. It's just unbelievable, man. I can't believe, but yeah, freezing cold, man. I got jackets and gloves and toboggans and blankets and uh, sleeping bags, but I couldn't stop. And I remember walking up and down them streets and not bathing for 2 and 3 weeks at a time, and I hadn't eaten in 4 days and been up for 6 days, and hallucinating and going crazy, but crying, man, just crying because I couldn't stop. I could not stop, and I remember just it was a really bad place to be, man. It's a bad place to be, man.
So is this the first time you've entered a program?
No, uh, I've been in several programs, but I would look for I would actually look for the ones that I wanted to be in. I mean, I never had money to pay for the ones like up in California or anything, but I would look for 30-day programs. I never wanted to be there in the first place. I was doing it to pacify somebody or to satisfy the courts or for whatever reason. In Fort Worth, there's one. It's called Pine Street, and it's a 28-day program, and that seemed like an eternity for me. And so I always called it the easier, softer way, man. I just, but I can say that this is the first program that I'm actually digging deep, man, and it sucks. It does, man. I'm not talking bad about ODM. I think this is an awesome place. I love the staff. Uh, I just don't like how I feel. I just don't like what I'm going through. I feel like raw. I feel raw right now, like an open cut and somebody pouring alcohol on it. It's just it stings, man. So I've been going through some tough times here, man. Just um, and I always like to emphasize this, man. I don't have any problems with any clients. Just a good group of guys here. I don't have problems with the staff. I think they're loving and kind, really nice people. And so that only leaves one thing, man. I got a problem with Israel. That sucks. I mean, just that's that. And so if I left, like I've considered it so many times, um, well, I'm taking me with me. So I kind of feel stuck right now. I feel like a lot of times I don't want to be here because I don't want to deal with the raw and uncut part of this program where it's just, these assignments make you really dig deep, man. If you're really doing them, you're being thorough about it. And it's an ugly feeling, man. So it causes me to want to just run. But then if I leave, I go back to that misery, man, that miserable life I was living, that intolerable life I was living. And so I don't want that either. So I'm like, damn. It's like, I don't want to be here and I don't want to leave. What do I do, man? Work the program. Golly, man. I feel like I'm being drugged through the dirt right now, man. And I have absolutely nothing bad to say about this place. If I did, I would say it respectfully. I would voice how I felt, but it's an awesome program. It's just been tough for me, that's all.
Learning a lot about yourself.
Yeah, and I don't like it, man. It sucks. It does. I don't like it. I don't. It's been tough. It's overwhelming.
So, when your program's up and you complete the program, where would you like to see Israel?
Man, I got a lot of, excuse me. I would like to see some real healing, man. Some real healing. I understand I made a lot of bad choices in life, so I don't blame my childhood or my family or the system or anything else. But unfortunately, it's just a fact. I have some emotional and psychological issues, man. And so I would like to find some closure, man, and these emotional hangups that I have and these psychological barriers that I have. And I want some healing, man. I want some real, true healing. And my best description of that is Jerome Simon, Horace White, uh, Vaughn. I don't remember Vaughn's first name, but a gentleman that spoke to us. He's a graduate of this program. Philip Vaughn, yeah. And so these are stories that encourage me. When I see these guys, and I know maybe they're not just all the way there yet. They're still a work in progress. But when I see them, that gives me hope, man. That gives me a lot of hope. It does. It does. Because I feel hopeless, man. A lot of times. Not all the time, but I experience feelings of hopelessness a lot, man. And so their stories, their success stories, are very encouraging to me, extremely encouraging. So that's where I would like to see myself, where I see them.